The FBI opened the files, and the world held its breath. Michael Jackson's grave was empty. Not a trace, not an explanation. The question exploded like a nighttime detonation. If the king of pop truly wasn't in his casket, where on earth is he? The chilling documents from the FBI revealed something beyond imagination, a mystery that made even the most stoic individuals shudder. This wasn't merely the story of a grave site. It was a sobering alert about the truth concealed beneath the spotlight. The steel door of the FBI archives creaked open, the sound of the hinges echoing like a sigh from the past. Inside, hundreds of pages of documents bearing the name Michael Jackson were neatly stacked in a thick folder, the pale red seal fading with time. They said everything had been disclosed, that these were just technical papers, old investigative reports. Yet, inexplicably, from within that very pile of paper, a whisper was heard, faint but profoundly unsettling. Something remained unspoken. The first pages of the dossier unfolded, presenting cold, unemotional lines, threat assessments, media analyses, cooperative investigations with local police. These lines appeared dry, but if one looked deeply, they revealed a world of tension where the king of pop's name was tied not only to music, but also to fear, isolation, and the shadows that clung to him throughout his life. The FBI meticulously recorded every threatening call, every suspicious package, every stranger lingering near his home. Behind the dazzling light of the man who once made the planet dance was a life lived in constant vigilance, as though he was being hunted even on stage. But what truly sent shivers down the spine of those who read the files wasn't what they saw, but what they didn't. Not a single line mentioned an inspection of the grave. No document recorded the moving of physical remains or any question surrounding his final resting place. It was this very silence, the void between the lines, that caused sleepless nights. Because in the world of information, sometimes what is withheld is far more terrifying than what is revealed. A former FBI agent once commented, "This file is nothing special, but perhaps that's what makes it terrifying." He recounted that in sensitive cases, the most notable part often lies in the pages removed before the file is released. And indeed, in Jackson's file, there were strange gaps where several pages should be, only a rust-stained staple remaining. One could assume it was a clerical error, or one might believe someone meticulously excised a part of the story. No one knew for certain, and precisely because no one knew for certain, the whispers began. Newspapers at the time started digging deeper. A few reporters found clues about VHS tapes analyzed by the FBI, recording behind-the-scenes footage, tours, and private moments. Some segments, according to those involved in the review, were impossible to look away from, not because of shocking content, but because something felt wrong. The wrongness wasn't about actions, but about the atmosphere. Footage of Jackson in his final years, where even when he smiled, his eyes carried a palpable weariness he couldn't hide, as if he knew something the world shouldn't. Then the rumors began to sprout little by little, weaving their way through the media network. Speculative articles talked about gaps in the FBI file, the disappearance of some evidence, unexplained traces. And as a natural consequence, the speculation broadened. Did Jackson's grave truly contain physical remains? No one would confirm, and no one would deny. That very ambiguity made everything suspicious. Michael's devoted fans felt torn. On one hand, they held absolute faith in their idol, the artist who spent his life singing of peace, love, and fairness. On the other, they were drawn in by the mysticism surrounding him, the enigma that made Jackson a figure both real and legendary. When the FBI released the files, people hoped for answers. Instead, they found only more questions. Each page opened felt like another layer of smoke obscuring an already blurred portrait. One analyst remarked, "The Michael Jackson file is not a story about a crime. It's a story about a man misunderstood by his own era." The threats, investigations, and anonymous letters all spoke to one undeniable fact. The world never truly comprehended Jackson. He was simultaneously worshipped and scrutinized, loved and feared. This contradiction kept his image existing at the boundary between human and icon. In the FBI dossier, amidst the dry data analysis, there were small handwritten notes by investigators. Subject appears anxious. Subject feels unsafe. Requests privacy. Just a few words, but enough to weigh heavily on the reader. A man who sang, "You are not alone," was now isolated to the core by the very world he sang to. And perhaps that very solitude is the red thread connecting the rumors, the cold file pages, and the hearts that still ache when they remember him. It's been said that some nights in the FBI archives, when staff walked past this section of files, they heard a rustling sound as if someone was turning documents. They told each other it was only the wind, but some claimed that in the darkness they saw a page flip, even with the door sealed shut. Perhaps it was imagination, or perhaps the whisper of a soul who never found true rest. When the archive door closed, the sound of metal rang out flatly. Inside, the files sank back into silence as if they never existed. But once opened, no one could forget the sensation, the feeling of a secret not fully disclosed, of a story both real and dreamt, where every piece of evidence could be a deception. Michael Jackson is gone, but the whispers from the secret files continue to echo, not to accuse, but to remind. Some truths, even when written in black ink on white paper, are only half the picture. The rumor began with a single short line, yet its propagation was like a hurricane. A tabloid ran a headline that brought the world to a halt. "The singer's grave is empty. The body was not found." A single sentence was enough to plunge those who had wept at Michael Jackson's memorial into a chasm of doubt. People shared it, commented, argued, and then one day, no one remembered who first said it, but everyone believed they had heard somewhere that Michael Jackson's grave held nothing. The story spread as if it had always existed, merely waiting for a chance to surface. Because in a world consumed by fascination with this man, idol, icon, and enigma, any news connected to the mystery became the perfect fuel. Online papers turned it into sensational fodder, attaching old photos and supposed insider accounts. No one verified, yet the story grew, nourished by the public's insatiable curiosity. The Jackson family eventually spoke out. A relative said in a brief interview, the remains were transferred for private placement. The casket was purely symbolic. That statement, instead of quelling speculation, made the fire burn more fiercely. If it were true, if the remains had been moved before the casket was placed in the tomb, didn't that also mean the grave was indeed empty? Contradiction began to form. To the fans, Michael Jackson was more than a person. He was a belief. And that belief could not tolerate ambiguity. Some believed the family simply wanted to preserve his peace, but others saw in it the shadow of something deeper.